This is Cynthia Dill. This is Keep Up. I'm Cynthia Dill. It's Friday, September 12th, 2025. I'm in my Cape Elizabeth studio, and I wanted to comment on the recent news about what was actually said on the casings related to the killing of Charlie Kirk. I think everyone knows by now that 31-year-old political activist Charlie Kirk was assassinated in Utah. And the killer was at large for some time, despite the false statements otherwise given early on that the suspect had been in custody. There's been a lot of mixed messages coming from the investigation, but today we learned that the suspect, who is now believed to be the killer, is a 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, who is a white guy who grew up in a conservative family. His parents are reported to be Republican. And the messages that were on the evidence, in fact, have nothing to do with transgender ideology, right? That was one of the first things that was reported, that when the rifle and the bullets were found, there was inscriptions that related to transgender and anti-fascist ideology. Okay, well, that's not true. And the killer was not a left-wing zealot. And, I am one who has been very vocal in my opposition to transgender ideology, and I stand committed against it. And one of the main reasons is because it's built on a house of cards. It's built on falsehoods that are harmful to society. Transgender ideology is a set of ideas that includes the belief that sex is assigned at birth as opposed to being observed as fact, the belief that children can be born in the wrong body, the belief that men can be women if they say so and feel strongly about it, the belief that athletic contests are competitions of gender identity and not human bodies. Okay, all that is BS. And all of that harms and discriminates against women. All of that harms children, leading them to believe that the medicalization of gender nonconformity is their avenue out of adolescence angst, that drugging gender nonconforming kids or amputating girls' breasts is care. All of that I reject because it's not true. And in our society, we need to have a system of beliefs that's based on truth. And we need to have reporting about horrific murders like the one of Charlie Kirk. That I, of course, am, political violence is no answer. Political assassination, it will be the ruin of our country. So I am so opposed to any sort of political violence, but I'm also opposed to false headlines and false scapegoating, using this issue, this very toxic issue right now of transgender ideology, and throwing, fuel on the fire. The headlines that transgender ideology has anything to do with Charlie Kirk's murder are apparently completely false. And all the spinning of all the pundits about this being some sort of transgender issue is apparently false. And it's no different than the transgender ideology, which is also false. So here's my point. If we're going to fire teachers for espousing transgender ideology, right, which is what's happening, you can't teach the gender unicorn. Well, if we're going to fire people for that, then the people who are responsible for saying falsely that transgender ideology has anything to do with the killing of Charlie Kirk should be fired, right? You can be opposed to transgender ideology like I am. I'm deeply opposed to it for a lot of the reasons that I just said. It prioritizes gender identity over sex, which harms, discriminates against women, and hurts kids. But I am not opposed to, I don't hate transgender people. I'm trying to convince them that, that their framework, that their social construct is not good, and I reject it. In dialogue, I'm not going to commit any violent acts against any transgender person. We have to be able to debate ideas without succumbing to violence, right? But we also need to rely on people in positions of trust, the FBI director, whoever, falsely reported that Charlie Kirk's murder had anything to do with transgender ideology need to be held accountable. And all the pundits who, spend hour after hour telling us how unreliable the news is, right? Megyn Kelly, I'm looking at you. I'm a fan of Megyn Kelly, but she has been a skeptic of the liberal media, right? And she's a lawyer. And there was absolutely no evidence that this had anything to do with transgender ideology other than a headline in the mainstream media. And yet she inferred, right? She just went spinning. All these people went spinning about transgender and somehow pointing the finger at transgender people. Well, they owe, I think, an apology to the public for buying hook, line, and sinker news that is not true, news on which was, not based on any evidence. So the actual quotes that were on the bullet casings were, "Hey, fascist, catch." That's certainly related to fascist ideology. "Hey, fascist, catch this bullet." The other quote says, according to the news reports, if it's true, this is what it said: "If you read this, you are gay. LMAOOO." So if you read this, engraving on this casing, you are gay. LMAOOO. Laugh my ass off. Okay, that's not anti-trans. That has nothing to do with transgender ideology. Being gay has nothing to do with transgender ideology. And that's the point. You can't just lump everything into, not every issue on the left is the same. There are a lot of gay people who reject transgender ideology. And it's offensive to be included, lumped in transgender ideology by the mere fact that you're gay. Just because there is an alphabet club, it doesn't mean that all people who are gay believe in transgender ideology. I fully support gay marriage. Okay, I'm a huge believer in the law treating equally contracts of two people to love and take care of each other. I full-throated support of gay rights of equal rights for everybody. I support civil rights of transgender people. They should be treated with compassion and protected under the law. What I'm opposed to, and what I said, over and over and over again, is this gender identity, this gender ideology that puts fake gender identity, which is ill-defined, over the biological reality of the two sexes, because it allows any man, anytime, to declare themselves a woman, because they feel strongly about it, and enter single-sex spaces and commit harm against women. It discriminates against women because we can't compete in sports with people who are our equals. It harms kids because it espouses care that includes drugging of gender nonconforming kids. And like I said, amputating healthy body parts. So there's really good reasons to be opposed to gender ideology. And there's really good reasons to be opposed to, obviously, political assassination. And there's really good reasons to expect the truth from our people who we've entrusted with positions of trust, like the law enforcement, the FBI director, anyone who reported that this had anything to do with transgender ideology should be held accountable, because it didn't. And anyone who is responsible for fomenting this mistrust and this hate against, transgender people should be fired. And that's it. This is Cynthia Dill.